another edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks, and we have a show lined up for you. Big news, obviously, today. Aaron Rodgers talking about what he might do. Rich Cimini, who covers the Jets, is going to be joining us on the show. Also, Greg McElroy is going to be joining us as well, getting you ready for the XFL Week 5. We'll talk some college football as well as some of the guys getting ready for the draft. And of course, it's March Madness, baby. It is time. Tomorrow it all begins. So every one of our guests who's going to be on the show will find out who do they have making it all the way to the final championship of the Big Dance. So a lot coming your way. And let's start off. We've got a new segment here. We're really excited about it. It's called Question Marks. See what we did there? I know. And what we're going to do moving forward is that we're going to allow our viewers out there to submit questions, and you can throughout the week. You can hit me up on Twitter, ESPN, of course, our PR department. Any gambling questions you want answered, we'll do it once a week here on Bet. So we're starting today with some of the hot topics out there trending on social media that pertain to betting. So let's start first and foremost with the news of Aaron Rodgers, of course, going on the Pat McAfee show earlier today, saying that his intention is to play for the Jets, just waiting for a deal to get in place between the Green Bay Packers and the Jets. So what does that mean? Looking at the Caesars odds right now in the AFC East, the Bills right now are plus 130, the Jets at plus 180, the Fins come in at plus 375, and New England 10-1. Are you kidding me? I can get the Bills right now at plus money to win the AFC East. I am all over that, man. You're talking about a team that has more cohesiveness. Josh Allen as their starting quarterback. I don't know about you. I'd rather have Josh Allen as my starting quarterback on my NFL team than Aaron Rodgers, 7 days a week and twice on Sunday, right? Very interesting. If you listen to what Aaron said earlier today, he said he was 90% feeling like he wanted to retire when he went into that box of darkness, as opposed to 10% playing. So here we're talking about a guy who's going to have to come in, recommit himself in order for this Jets team to really do something in a very much more competitive AFC East than the division that he's coming out of in the NFC. He's going to have to recommit himself. I've got some big question marks whether or not he wants to do that. Coming here to New York, a different organizational culture, having to deal with the media, the New York media. We're not easy, folks. We're not easy. To me, I could get the Bills at plus money. I'm all over it. Now, do the Jets make it to the postseason as a wild card? Wouldn't be surprised. But for me, I think the Bills still are the king dog right now in the AFC East. Let's talk about March Madness, right? And looking at the brackets, I know myself, I'm going to be up late tonight filling out my brackets for all the pools that I'm playing in. And more parity this year in college basketball in March Madness than I think we've seen in years past. But there's one team that I'm eyeing that I feel really confident about, and that's Creighton, right? Coming out of the South, 8-1, by the way, that they could represent the South in the Final Four, and I like it for a number of reasons. Number one, I think Bama very well could be knocked off by West Virginia or San Diego State. So if you're saying, no way Creighton could beat the number one seed out of the South in Alabama, I think you're wrong. The path to the Elite Eight for them, to me, is not very difficult. NC State, Baylor, Utah State, or Arizona, it's not too daunting of a task for them to get to the Final Four. And also, you know, this is a very well-rounded team. When you look at a team that can make that type of charge and make it, and call it an upset, and make it to the Final Four, they're a really well-rounded defense. Their defense is really good opposing the three, and that's what Alabama does well, by the way. They're a great pick-and-roll team, and they're a very balanced offense. They've got some veteran leadership. They've got some young talent. So I'm eyeing Creighton to make it to the Final Four, and again, you can get that at 8-1. Last but not least, talking some XFL. If you've been watching, you know I'm all over the XFL. And the question is, who's going to win the XFL championship? Right now, the Houston Roughnecks, to me, are the number one team. And I know I'm not going out on a limb here by any stretch of the imagination, right? They're 4-0 this season. If you go back before the XFL was shut down before COVID, they're really 9-0, to be quite frank. You could get them at plus 175 right now to win the XFL championship. With Wade Phillips in that defense, solid quarterback play, in the XFL. My favorite quarterback in this league is A.J. McCarron, but nonetheless, solid quarterback play, solid offensive play. Here's what's going to be really telling. The next few weeks, they're going up against Seattle, D.C., and St. Louis. I don't believe these odds are going to be as good or as juicy than they are right now. So if you could jump on the Roughnecks to win the XFL championship at plus 175 as a futures bet, that's what I would do. Again, fun segment coming your way. Question marks. Hit us up on Twitter. We're here to answer a variety of gambling questions for you moving forward. Without further ado, let's bring in Rich Cimini. Again, he does a phenomenal job covering the Jets for us here at ESPN. And Rich, as I said before we started the show, probably one of the most wanted men on the planet right now because you have your finger on the pulse of better than most. So let's talk about Aaron. As we know, he went on Pat McAfee's show earlier today, and what he communicated was that he wants to play for the Jets, right? He met with the Jets. He gave the Jets a list of some of the players, his guys that he wants on this team. So far, of course, Lazard now has been signed. Some other names out there, Mercedes Lewis, Randall Cobb, even mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. So with that being said, what do you feel, what other moves do you feel the Jets are going to make in the next few hours, days, in regard to the group of players that Aaron wants on this Jets team, this Jets franchise?
Yeah, I think Aaron joked about that a little bit on the McAfee show today. He said this wasn't like a list of demands that he wanted to make from the Jets. And I think he's right. From what I gather, this is more of a collaborative thing. The Jets said to him, hey, Aaron, who are some players you'd comfortable with playing with? And, of course, he mentioned some former teammates. I do expect that Alan Lazard deal to get done shortly. Randall Cobb, I think there's a good chance he ends up with the Jets. Now, they already have a good slot receiver in Elijah Moore, but I think Randall Cobb could come in as a backup slot. I'd be very surprised if they signed Odell Beckham Jr. The Jets do not have a lot of cap room, and he is asking for a lot of money. I think that would be a luxury for the Jets. And same with Mercedes Lewis. The Jets actually have a few good tight ends, so I don't think that would happen. But I do think they might get that Randall Cobb thing done eventually.
Well, Rich, you mentioned cap space. If you can kind of break this down for us, right? Like, how are the Jets being able to afford, Aaron Rodgers, and what do you feel after that deal's done potentially could be available for other players? We know that there's some offensive line help that this team desperately needs, especially if they're bringing in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's too bad he should get some of his BFFs who are offensive linemen to come with him to New York, because that's where the Jets need the help. They also lost 2 defensive tackles today in free agency, so they need some help there as well. In terms of the cap space, they can manipulate the cap. Rodgers is not going to crush their cap. Under his existing contract, he would only count $16 million on the Jets' cap. Now, I say existing contract because I totally expect that contract to be reworked in the coming days when that trade happens. So conceivably, he could count less on the cap. So I think there is some maneuverability for the Jets to bring in some more players.
So have you gotten an idea? Of course, we heard what Aaron had to say. Have you gotten an idea in regard to what the terms of the deal could potentially look like? Because all we know right now is Aaron wants to come to New York. He wants to play for the Jets. The only thing that's holding it up is the deal between the Green Bay Packers and the Jets. What do you know about that potential deal?
Right. I think I feel comfortable in saying this. They wouldn't be this far down the road if the Jets didn't feel comfortable with what the Packers are asking for. I don't think the Jets would have left themselves this vulnerable, because they've missed out on a bunch of other quarterbacks because they have all their eggs in the Rodgers basket. So I don't think there's a huge gap in what they're looking for compensation-wise. I think the big question is, will it include a first-round pick? I don't think the Jets want to give up a first-round pick for a 39-year-old quarterback who may only play a year or two. So I think you're looking at something like maybe 2 2s, 2 3s, but also a conditional aspect attached to one of those picks.
All right, Rich, I need to ask, because we're on the precipice of March Madness. Do you have a March Madness play? Who do you think wins the big dance this season?
Well, Anita, you're talking to a Syracuse grad, so for obvious reasons, I'm not as into the tournament as I usually am. We had a rough year with the Orange, but if I had to pick someone, I would say Duke coming out of the East. I know they're the number 5 seed, so it'll be a difficult road, but I watched them recently. Love the way they're playing defense. They're a young team that seems to be peaking at the right time, so that would be my choice.
Thank you so much for joining us, Rich. It's going to be a fun few 24, 48 hours until this all, of course, reveals itself. Appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us on Bet. We will be on Aaron watch. You can guarantee that. All right, well, let's talk some NCAA tournament. And we have 2 games tonight that I have some plays for you. Let's start first and foremost, Texas Southern. They're favored by 2.5, going up against Fairleigh Dickinson, and the over-under is 147.5. I actually had FDU's head coach on my radio show this week. I am, unfortunately, because it's here in my backyard, I'm leaning on Texas Southern. I'll lay the points with Texas Southern for a number of reasons. They've been here. They've done that. They got the free T-shirt. They have the experience. FDU, they don't. This is a new head coach, and this has been a real big turnaround year for them. On top of that, they got an automatic bid to get into this tournament. It's like that they won. They lost to Merrimack, actually, but Merrimack has issues in regard to transition status. So it was kind of like, okay, you lost, but you still get to go to this play-in scenario. So that doesn't sit well with me. Also, Texas Southern, they're long, they're athletic, they're a good perimeter defense, they're a good rebounding team. FDU, believe it or not, is the smallest team in the tournament in the country and have the 3rd worst defense. So as much as I'm going to be rooting for FDU, I'm going to be laying the points with Texas Southern. The other game tonight is Arizona State going up against Nevada. Arizona State is favored by 2. The over-under is 135.5. Give me Bobby Hurley and his Devils, right? On top of this, very interesting storyline here because actually the transfer portal brought in 2 Nevada players to play on his team, Cambridge and Washington. Washington, big part of that team. And so Nevada, they've lost 3 straight. A lot of people feel that Rutgers and Oklahoma State should have gotten in over Nevada. So you look at this Bobby Hurley's Arizona State team. They're a good free throw shooting team. They're 79% from the line. They beat USC. They beat Arizona. They beat Creighton, who, of course, I talked about earlier before. And their defense holds opponents to 39% shooting from behind the arc, and they play really fast. So I do like Arizona State, and you know what? I'll take them on the money line at minus 130. I don't think that's laying too much juice. And also, I do like the over here at 133.5. Let's take a look at some of the Friday games that I'd love for you to get on now before some of these lines change, okay? And let's start with Drake, first and foremost. And again, this is hard for me as well because I'm from the U, baby. I'm from the University of Miami. But I like Drake here, right? University of Miami might be without one of their bigs, and they lost to FSU at home. Since February, University of Miami is the 62nd, 6'2" best team in the country. Drake actually is the 12th best. They're 8-1 since February. Kennesaw going to Xavier. It's too many points. Give me the 12.5. Why not? Everybody with Kennesaw can shoot. There's 37th in 3-point shooting percentage. They can at any given time put up 23s in a game. They've got lots of experience, a lot of seniors, juniors, and Xavier we know he's going to be without Fremantle. So therefore their perimeter defense takes a hit. And last but not least, Kent State, give me the points here as well against Indiana. Tremendous defense, great matchup. Their guard carry could take advantage of Indiana's perimeter defense. And they've got 3 solid wins on the road. Gonzaga, Houston, and Charleston. And again, they are a complete mid-major. So these are 3 plays that I'm jumping on. I'm going to the window right now to get on before these lines change. Let's talk about some of the XFL Week 5 games that are going to be on tap. So we've got Greg joining us. Greg, always great to have you on Bet. I'm really big into the XFL. I'm excited that we're heading into Week 5, and we've got some interesting matchups. So let's start first and foremost. On Thursday night, late night on Thursday night, you've got Houston going up against Seattle. Houston favored by 3. The over-under here is 41.5. How are you playing this matchup?
Well, I think you look at this and you look at the fact that Houston scored 44 last week by themselves. They're going up against Seattle. the number one passing attack in the XFL. You got to take the over, right? Oh, no, not me. I'm taking 41.5, and I'm taking the under. The reason why, both teams run variations of the run and shoot / air raid, meaning that Wade Phillips, who's the head coach of the Houston Roughnecks, he's going to be going up against an offense that he sees every single day in practice. You think he's not going to have some type of plan? These two teams are so eerily familiar with each other. The offensive coordinator at Seattle is June Jones. He was the head coach of the Houston Roughnecks the last time around. So there's a lot of familiarity here, and I just think that number just south of the football number of 42 makes me lean towards the under just a little bit. But, man, it doesn't feel very comfortable to me. I got to be very honest with you there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what does feel comfortable, Greg, and that is Houston. I'll lay the points with Houston again. They're just so good. Right? I mean, not only are they 4-0 this season, but if you go back pre-COVID when the league had to shut down, they're 9-0. They beat Orlando 44-16. Not a surprise there. I was laying I want to say at kickoff it was 9 against Orlando. I know it's a short work week. That might scare some folks. Of course, heading out and having to play on the road. But Seattle, not to take anything away from DiNucci and Josh Gordon, and we've seen that offense develop and get better in weeks, and Ellison, of course, at the running back position. I just think Houston's too good. So I will lay the points. On Saturday, we've got a few games. One of my favorite teams, I love watching DC play. They're going up against St. Louis. In St. Louis, huge fan base, right? Like 30, almost 40,000 fans there. Really unbelievable. DC is favored by 2. The over-under here is at 41.5 as well. What's your play?
Well, this one, to me, reeks because you have the undefeated team obviously facing off against the most difficult home environment, right? Everyone watched 38,000 strong. It was one of the highest rated games of the weekend last weekend. So everybody watched St. Louis in their own dome. People going crazy, and Arlington really struggled against them. St. Louis had by far their most complete performance to date en route to what was a thorough beatdown of the Arlington Renegades. All that being said, I can't believe DC's favored. It's real. It's one of those, like, how is St. Louis not favored here? I'm shocked, which means you got to take DC, right? You almost have to. They've been the most complete team in the XFL up to this point. I know you love Houston. I like DC just a little bit better right now, but ultimately I think it's purely because this line just smells really bad. I'm going to hold my nose. I'm going to lay the points with the road favorite, and just hope that the more complete team beats the team that's played much better in the fourth quarter of every game this year.
Listen, like I said earlier, I like A.J. McCarron. I think he's the best quarterback in this league. I love the fan base. I love the excitement. But I'm with you. I'm laying the points with D.C. Because this is a team. They're 4-0 on the season. They beat the Vipers last week, 32-18. I love that. Here's the thing. I think very few of these teams, Greg, they don't have an identity yet. I feel DC does, right? Smash mouth football, very balanced offense. I love their dual quarterback play. They don't do anything exceptionally great, but they do a lot of things well. And so I'm with you. I think there's something stinky and smelly about this line. So I'm with you. I like DC. I'll lay the points. On Sunday, we've got San Antonio going up against the Arlington Renegades. And so this line right now, San Antonio is favored by 2. And the over-under just is 35.5. There we go. I couldn't see my notes. So what's your play in this matchup on Saturday?
Well, two offenses that have really struggled. San Antonio actually just recently reassigned their offensive coordinator, Jaime Elizondo. He's now not going to be calling plays anymore. They promoted from within. Jimmy Johnson now going to be the guy. But ultimately, this comes down to short fields. And if I have learned anything from watching Arlington up to this point, is that there's going to be turnovers forced, and there's also going to be forced turnovers. And I think they might be on both sides. So I love the over in this game of 35.5. I think it flies past that. It's the short field, and all the Arlington games have been kind of close to the vest up to this point. but I just get the sense that this thing could get a little bit sideways. I'm also taking San Antonio, and I'm going to lay the 2 points. Like St. Louis, like Seattle, like DC, San Antonio has had a very compelling home field environment. I think that will be a factor, especially if turnovers are as much a part of the game as I anticipate them being. So give me San Antonio with a revamped offensive core, forcing a few turnovers, forcing a couple short fields, and ultimately winning the game comfortably by a field goal or so.
I'm with you, lockstep. I'm taking San Antonio. I'm going to lay the points as well. New offensive coordinator Jimmy Johnson can make some noise. I know they lost to Seattle 15-18, but I'm feeling a quarterback change coming here shortly. And more importantly, to me, the Renegades, it's hard. They lost to St. Louis last week. Now this will be their second straight road trip. So I'm with you. I'm on San Antonio. Real quick, you've got the Vipers taking on the worst team in the XFL in Orlando, laying 7.5. I'll lay it. If you're scared, say you're scared. I'm not. Are you playing this one?
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna play it. I'd lay it. I've watched Orlando. I've seen them try everything. I don't like it. To me, that team is really struggling. Very little offensive identity. Defensively, they've struggled. They've gotten off to really slow starts. If they get off to a decent start and run the football, they might be able to hang in there. But I think that Vegas is still a team that has some juice. They completely shot themselves in the foot week 1. They've had opportunities to move the football, just haven't been consistent enough. So I'm going to take Vegas. I'm going to lay the points. And until proven otherwise, you cannot take the Guardians. Not right now, you can't. Not saying they can't get things turned around, but the first half of the season, they're a very difficult team, even to take north of a touchdown worth of points with.
We're on the same side with all these games, Greg. I don't know if I should feel really good about this or a little concerned. But we can't let you go without talking some college football, right? Last week, big trade that went down. Carolina traded up with the Bears, so now they have the number 1 overall pick. And with that move, C.J. Stroud now becomes the favorite to be the number 1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft, anticipating that he will go to Carolina. His odds now are minus 330, which means for folks listening, you've got to lay $330 down to win $100. Do you agree with this move? Do you think he's the pick?
I would not lay that price, and I just can't. I look at what C.J. Stroud was, and he played phenomenally well against Georgia in his final college game, and I think you could make a strong case that he's probably the safest pick of the bunch. I think Bryce Young would obviously be in the mix for that, but I can't lay 330. I just can't under any circumstance. And frankly, we've seen so many quarterbacks. It's all smoke screens at this point. We're still 6 weeks out from draft time. Don't play it. Just wait a little bit longer, get a little bit more buzz. And we've seen guys like, for instance, Baker Mayfield just skyrocket late. You could get him in mid-March at 6 or 7 to 1. And then sure enough, come draft day, he's minus 1,500. What happened? So I would just wait right now, because to me, it just feels like there's a lot of smoke, and I don't like smoke at this point of the draft process.
All right, last but not least, the madness starts tomorrow, Greg. We got to get a pick for you in regard to March Madness. Who do you have winning this whole damn thing?
I mean, is there anyone else that you can possibly pick besides Alabama? Come on. I mean, I got the helmet going. I think Alabama's the best team, though. I'm a Bama guy. That's understood. We get that. But at 7 to 1, this team has continued. They have their first 2 games in Birmingham, Alabama. I know because I'll be there. I live in Birmingham. So I look at just how this team is built. They defend the 3 extremely well. They have arguably the best player in the country in Brandon Miller. They have veteran leadership that comes off the bench in Javon Quinterly. And they have length inside in Charles Bediako. They have a couple of guys that might get picked in the lottery beyond Brandon Miller. So I just think they're too deep. They can go 8 or 9 deep. And honestly, I'm just not sure there's many teams that can match that depth throughout the course of a 6-game season. I think Houston is by far the toughest matchup. But at that point, if Houston's favored, you'll be able to get plus money again on the Tide, who beat them earlier in Houston in the regular season. So give me Bama. I'll take them at 7 to 1.
No, Greg, you're not going to like me very much. I've got Creighton coming out of that region. I've got Creighton coming out of the South to represent the Final Four. We'll see what happens. Greg,
I heard it
so
earlier.
much
I
for
like
joining
the
us
price on Creighton, though. I will admit, I like the price on Creighton. So if we're looking at it exclusively through a betting window, the price on Creighton is tasty. I understand where you're coming from.
I appreciate that, my friend. Enjoy the XFL games this week. Really do appreciate you joining us here on Bet, that's for sure. All right, so let's talk some March Madness. Again, the madness begins tomorrow, and I've got some picks and some plays for you. So let's start first and foremost. Furman going up against Virginia. The reason we're talking about this is Tyler and Dallin Cup on Monday they said that this is their upset alert. This is their upset special. Do I agree with them? Absolutely. So I'm taking Furman. I'm giving the 8.5. That's for sure. And also, it's a +6, not 8.5. It's +6. They might win them out. They might beat them outright. I also like the under here, 132. Why? This is really interesting. They have a 28% win probability, but on ESPN with the bracket challenge, only 14% of the brackets have chosen Furman. Really interesting. They've got 2 fifth-year seniors, Slauson and Balkwell, 5 good shooters, shooting 48% from the field. They don't turn the ball over, and they're a good free throw team as well when they get to the line. So I do like Furman. Number 2, we've got West Virginia going up against Maryland. West Virginia favored by 2. The over-under is 138. Huggy Bear, baby. He's great in the Big Dance. 4-1 in the first round as the head coach of West Virginia. Maryland, this might shock you, they've only won 2 road games since November. That doesn't bode well for them. West Virginia, good defense, especially defending the threes. And they beat Iowa State and Texas Tech, which to me was pretty impressive. I also like Arkansas in the first half. So Arkansas is favored by 2. The over-under is 143.5. But give me Arkansas in the first half. I'll also take Arkansas on the money line for a number of reasons. Arkansas is one of the best fast start teams in college basketball. Unfortunately, they don't make great second half adjustments in regard to coaching. I also like them because they're getting Nick Smith back. He's a lottery pick, a guard. He's going to go possibly top 5 in this year's NBA draft. They've got experience. They've been to the Elite Eight two straight years in a row. 13th in regard to the tallest teams in college basketball. They rank 13th in the country with the Mitchell brothers and a top 50 defense. So I do like Arkansas. And last but not least, this might be one of my favorite plays, and that's San Diego State. Give me San Diego State -5. The over-under is 141.5. Now, here's I'm going to start with the negative. And the negative is not the committee did not do them justice, right? They're going to have to travel all the way to Florida, and they're going to have an afternoon tip. But they've been battle tested, all right? They've gone up against 10 quad 1 games. Charleston has not. And their offense, 64th in offensive efficiency, 10th best in defensive efficiency. They've got 9 players who average anywhere between 15 minutes. They've got great rotation, so which means they have a lot of fresh legs. They've got 7 juniors, 7 seniors, 2 juniors, and they're a good three-pointing team, and they're good defending the three-point. They hold opponents to only 29% from behind the arc. So San Diego State as well is who I like. All right, so let's do this as well. What's the one team that I'm telling you, like, this is who you got to go to the window for? This is possibly my best bet on Thursday. It's Utah State. That's right, going up against Missouri. I also like the over in this. Why? They're 7-1 against the spread. Their last 8 games, the only loss that they did have was against San Diego State. Can they be a Cinderella story and make a run? Well, they check a lot of the boxes, right? An experienced roster. Their defense has improved throughout the season. They are peaking at the right time. They have the 7th best field goal free throw team percentage, 80% in the country, and also the 6th best three-point team in the country. Meanwhile, Missouri, they haven't won an NCAA game since 2010. They're 0-5 against the spread in those matchups. They have bad perimeter defense. They're not a great rebounding team. But the reason I do like this over as well is because both these teams are shooting 42% from behind the arc. And that's got probably my best bet heading into Thursday. Last but not least, we always like to end the show with, before I let you go. And you know me, we've got to talk some golf. The Valspar kicks off tomorrow. That's right, the metrics I'm looking at here to win: strokes gained, off the tee, putting, scrambling. Here's another thing. The Masters is going to be here before we know it. Big names, they come into this type of tournament against the Valspar, and they want to tweak their game. So I'm looking at some of the guys who are flying low under the radar with some really great odds. Give me Justin Rose at 20-1. He's won already this season. He's top 20. He finished top 20 at the Players, second in strokes gained total the last 6 months. And also, give me Justin Sue as well. Corn Ferry Tour, really crushed it there. He's solid at the Players, and also he has improved his putting. As I know it's a short sample size, but this season. Also, give me Sam Ryder to finish in the top 10, second in strokes gained putting the last 3 months. And again, really important metric in winning here. And last but not least, Adam Hadwin. A lot of people like him to win. So give me him finishing the top 10 at plus 260. Finished 13th last week, fourth in strokes gained tee to green. If his putter gets a little hot, all right? If his putter gets a little hot, he potentially could win this. And I just like the odds that he's getting in the top 10. All right, we got you locked and loaded. All things NCAA, XFL, Aaron Rodgers, NFL, as well as golf. Good luck. We'll see you on Friday.